If you are watching this, it is likely because you are exhausted. Not the kind of tired that comes from a long day at work or a lack of sleep, but a deep, soul-level fatigue that settles in your bones. You feel confused, constantly second-guessing your own memory, your own feelings, and even your own sanity. You might be asking yourself why something that started with so much intensity and promise has turned into a landscape of walking on eggshells. You feel like no matter how hard you try, how much you give, or how clearly you communicate, you are always the one who ends up apologizing. You are always the one who feels like you are failing. This exhaustion is not a sign of your weakness. It is a sign that you have been running a marathon on a treadmill that someone else controls. You have been trying to win a game that was designed for you to lose. It is important to say this clearly right now. You were not the problem. The confusion you feel is not because you are difficult to love or because you are overly sensitive. The confusion is a direct result of manipulation. When you are involved with a woman who possesses strong narcissistic traits, the reality you experience is not shared. It is curated. She presents a version of herself that is charming, vulnerable, or exceptionally capable. But this is often a mask used to secure admiration, control, or supply. When the mask slips, or when you fail to provide the exact type of attention she demands, the dynamic shifts instantly. You are left holding the bag of emotional chaos, wondering what you did wrong. But you did nothing wrong. You simply existed as a separate person with your own needs. And to a narcissist, your independence is perceived as a threat. To understand how to stand strong, we must first understand the psychological engine driving these behaviors. At the core of narcissism is a profound fragility. Despite the outward appearance of confidence, superiority, or victimhood, there is a hollow center. This emptiness creates an insatiable need for external validation. For a narcissistic woman, relationships are not partnerships based on mutual growth and respect. They are transactions. You are there to regulate her emotions, to boost her ego, or to serve as a scapegoat for her internal shame. When you realize this, the personal sting begins to fade. Her behavior is not about you. It is about her inability to tolerate the reality of being an ordinary, flawed human being. She projects her insecurities onto you because she cannot hold them herself. Let's look at the first major tactic, the idealization phase, often called love bombing. In the beginning, everything feels perfect. She mirrors your interests, your values, and your dreams. She makes you feel seen in a way you never have before. This is intoxicating. It creates a powerful chemical bond in your brain. You feel special, chosen, and understood. But this intensity is not genuine intimacy. It is a hook. By overwhelming you with affection and attention, she bypasses your natural boundaries. You lower your guard because it feels so good to be adored. However, this phase is unsustainable because it is not real. It is a performance. Once she feels she has secured your loyalty, the shift happens. The warmth turns cold. The attention withdraws, and you are left chasing the high of those early days, trying to figure out how to get that version of her back. This is the trap. You are not trying to connect with the real person. You are trying to reconnect with the illusion. As the relationship progresses, you encounter the second phase, devaluation. This is where the emotional games begin in earnest. Criticism becomes frequent, but it is rarely constructive. It is designed to erode your self-esteem. She may criticize your appearance, your career, your friends, or your family. She may use sarcasm or subtle digs that leave you feeling small. If you confront her, she will likely deny it. She will tell you that you are too sensitive, that you are imagining things, or that she was just joking. This is gaslighting. It is a method of making you doubt your own perception of reality. Over time, you stop trusting your gut. You start to believe that you are indeed too sensitive, that you are the problem, and that if you just tried harder, she would be happy again. This erosion of self-trust is the most dangerous part of the dynamic. It makes you dependent on her for your sense of reality. You look to her to tell you who you are, and since she needs you to be smaller than her, she tells you a lie. Another common pattern is triangulation. A narcissistic woman often brings third parties into the dynamic to create jealousy, insecurity, or competition. She might talk extensively about an ex-partner, a male colleague, or a friend who admires her. The goal is to make you feel like you are competing for her attention. It keeps you off balance. It makes you feel like you have to earn her love by being better than everyone else. This creates anxiety and obsession. You start monitoring her interactions, checking her phone, or worrying about where she is. This anxiety is not a sign that you are possessive. It is a sign that your attachment system has been hijacked. Intermittent reinforcement, getting love sometimes and rejection other times, is the most powerful way to create addiction. You stay because you are hoping for the next hit of validation. You stay because you believe that if you can just get it right, the pain will stop. But the pain is the point. The instability keeps you focused on her rather than on your own life. You may also notice a lack of empathy. When you are hurt, sick, or going through a difficult time, her response is often dismissive or self-centered. She may turn the conversation back to herself. If you are injured, she might complain about how your injury inconveniences her. If you are sad, she might accuse you of bringing down the mood. This is not just selfishness. It is an inability to view you as a separate entity with valid feelings. To her, your emotions are only relevant if they affect her. If your pain requires her to offer comfort without getting anything in return, she views it as a demand she is unwilling to meet. This leaves you feeling profoundly alone, even when you are in the same room. You learn to suppress your needs because expressing them leads to punishment or neglect. You become a caretaker of her emotions, while your own go unattended. Standing strong against this dynamic requires a fundamental shift in perspective. You must stop trying to explain yourself to someone who is committed to misunderstanding you. One of the hardest truths to accept is that you cannot logic your way out of an emotional trap. Narcissistic individuals do not operate on logic, they operate on emotion and control. When you try to explain your feelings, you are giving her more information to use against you. She will twist your words, pick apart your syntax, or use your vulnerability as evidence of your instability. Therefore, the first step in standing strong is silence. Not the silent treatment, which is manipulative, but strategic disengagement. You stop jading, justifying, arguing, defending, and explaining. You state your boundary once, clearly and calmly, and then you let it stand. If she violates it, you enforce the consequence without drama. For example, if she speaks to you with disrespect, you do not argue about whether her tone was rude. You simply say, "I will not continue this conversation if you speak to me that way," and you walk away. You leave the room. You hang up the phone. You remove your presence. This is not a punishment for her. It is protection for you. It shows her that access to you is a privilege, not a right. It demonstrates that you respect yourself enough to leave situations that are harmful. Initially, this will cause an escalation. She may become angry, panicked, or suddenly very sweet. This is called an extinction burst. She is testing to see if her old tactics still work. If you hold firm, if you do not engage in the argument, the behavior may eventually decrease because it no longer yields the desired result. But you must be prepared for the turbulence. Standing strong means staying calm in the face of her storm. This requires emotional detachment. Detachment does not mean you stop caring about humanity or that you become cold. It means you detach from the outcome of her reactions. You stop needing her to agree with you, to validate you, or to admit she was wrong. You accept that she will likely never take accountability. This acceptance is liberating. When you stop expecting her to change, you stop being disappointed by her consistency. You see her behavior for what it is, a reflection of her internal disorder, not a reflection of your worth. You begin to observe her actions with curiosity rather than pain. You notice the patterns. You see the manipulation for what it is. This observational stance creates space between you and the trigger. In that space, you find your power. Rebuilding your self-respect is the core of healing. For a long time, your identity may have been wrapped up in pleasing her or managing her moods. You may have forgotten who you are outside of that dynamic. Start by reconnecting with your own values. What matters to you? What brings you peace? Who are the people in your life who treat you with kindness and respect? Narcissistic relationships often isolate you from your support network. Reaching out to friends and family is crucial. They can provide a reality check. They can remind you of who you were before the confusion set in. Listen to them. If they express concern, do not dismiss it as jealousy or ignorance. Often, those on the outside see the dynamic more clearly than those in the middle of it. You must also rebuild trust in your own intuition. Your body knows the truth, even when your mind is confused. Pay attention to how you feel in her presence. Do you feel tense? Do you feel drained? Do you feel like you have to shrink? These are signals. Honor them. Your intuition is your internal guidance system, and it has been screaming at you to pay attention. Start making small decisions based on what feels right for you, not what will keep the peace with her. Choose the meal you want. Watch the movie you like. Spend time on your hobbies. These small acts of autonomy rebuild your sense of self. They remind you that you are the protagonist of your own life, not a supporting character in hers. Setting boundaries is not a one-time event. It is a daily practice. It requires consistency. You cannot set a boundary on Monday and ignore it on Tuesday because you are tired or lonely. Inconsistency teaches her that your boundaries are negotiable. You must be willing to endure the discomfort of her displeasure. Her anger is not your responsibility. Her disappointment is not your burden to carry. You are allowed to prioritize your mental health. You are allowed to say no. You are allowed to leave. In fact, leaving is often the only true boundary that works with a malignant narcissist. If the relationship is abusive, no amount of boundary setting will change the dynamic, because the dynamic itself is the abuse. In these cases, standing strong means planning your exit. It means securing your finances, gathering your documents, and building a support system for the transition. Healing from this experience takes time. You will have moments of doubt. You will miss the good times, or rather, the illusion of the good times. This is normal. Grief is part of the process. You are grieving the loss of the potential you saw in her, the future you imagined, and the version of yourself that believed love should be this hard. Allow yourself to grieve. But do not confuse grief with a reason to go back. The pain of leaving is acute, but the pain of staying is chronic. One heals, the other destroys. As you move forward, focus on building a life that is grounded in reality. Real love is not dramatic. It is not a roller coaster of highs and lows. It is steady. It is safe. It involves mutual respect, accountability, and empathy. It allows you to be your full self without fear of judgment or retaliation. When you experience healthy connections, the contrast will be stark. You will realize how much energy you wasted trying to manage someone else's emotions. You will realize how much strength you have developed by surviving this ordeal. Your sensitivity, which she may have mocked, is actually your superpower. It allows you to connect deeply with others, to empathize, and to create meaning. Do not let this experience harden you. Let it refine you. Let it teach you discernment. You now know what to look for. You know the red flags. You know the feeling of being manipulated. This knowledge protects you. It ensures that you will not easily fall into the same trap again. You are wiser. You are stronger. You are more aware. Stand strong, not by fighting her, but by refusing to play. Refuse to engage in the arguments. Refuse to accept the blame. Refuse to sacrifice your dignity for a moment of peace. Your peace is too valuable to be rented out to someone who cannot afford it. You deserve a life where you are heard, valued, and respected. You deserve a partnership where your vulnerability is met with care, not weaponized. This is not too much to ask. It is the baseline. Take a deep breath. Feel your feet on the ground. You are here. You are real. Your feelings are valid. Your experiences are real. You are not crazy. You are not broken. You are waking up. And as you wake up, you reclaim your power. Step by step, day by day, you build a foundation that cannot be shaken by someone else's instability. You choose yourself. And in choosing yourself, you find the freedom you have been looking for all along. The games end when you stop playing. The healing begins when you start believing in your own truth. Keep going. You are worth it.